Hi, everyone, and welcome back to season 3 of The Things We Know.
Woo!
Yay! This is our third time recording this episode, which is so
Third time's the
unlike
charm.
us. Yeah, third time's a charm. It's so unlike us to re-record 3 times, but one of the things we really wanted to do in season 3 was kind of I don't know, it's such a corporate speak, but like kind of up level the pod, right? We've had 2 seasons that were pretty easy for us to do. We've had a ton of fun. And um, Liam, my son, came to us in like October of last year and said, "Hey, I'd love to get you guys kind of at a new level with the podcast because he listens to a ton of podcasts, watches a lot of them on YouTube. And so he had these great ideas and a lot of them we're going to be using, but the main one was us recording on cameras and he would edit it together. That we when we recorded last week and it didn't work, we were joking about how our episode Learn Something New was really coming to fruition,
Right.
but it
And
was
also,
torture.
I mean, what's really funny too is the amount of things we had to try and, set up and then take out a memory card and then get a better memory card. And then, oh, it cut off our heads. Oh, we finally got it, but it went off during the middle. God damn it.
Yeah.
It was comical. I don't think my kids, I'm trying to remember the last time. Maybe in the early stages of being an entrepreneur, my kids heard me go, "Ugh!" Like it was like, setting up a camera and it was really wasn't with that we were doing it. It was with myself and and how we can all be like really impatient with ourselves when we're trying to learn something new. And so I'm glad we went through it
I'm
because
glad we tried. I mean, as
yeah,
we definitely
yeah,
gave it a college try. I think that's what I'm proud of for us was it was we 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 were open to some new ideas. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second, but we tried. It just when it came right down to it, and Liam ended up agreeing on this. I think the issue is you and I don't live in the same town. We do this over
yeah,
Zoom because you're in Portland and I'm in Los Angeles. And
yeah.
so to try to manage, and then Liam lives in San Diego. So it was this like three-way situation of like phone conversations and Zoom calls and text threads between the three of us. If we were all in the same city and we could record together, it would have been perfect. I would have been totally down for taking this off Zoom and doing it in a way that would make it a little bit visually more interesting. But had just gotten to the point where it wasn't fun anymore. And when we talk about learning something new or having goals or moving forward, it's always in my mind, it's no matter what your age, but especially at this age, if it's not fun, I am not going to spend fucking time on it. And it would just gotten to the point, and that's what I finally said to Liam. I'm like, I appreciate your ideas, but like, this isn't fun anymore. And Thursdays
It's
are
a
my
really good
favorite day when
reminder.
we record.
It's a really good reminder that like there's some things we have to do that aren't fun, but this isn't one of them.
Right. Totally. Totally.
Like doing it that way isn't one of them.
Yeah.
So it's a great reminder because I kept going, no, we'll get it. Because
Yeah.
I'm trying to be like stretch myself and was assuming I was sending you guys some crappy footage.
As was I.
I want to, we this being our third time recording. In a second, we want to give Charlotte some props for our amazing intro, but I also want to give Liam some credit for his vision and his patience and his creative responses and like his support. Like he's so good at this, and he's so good at
Yeah.
also making it work. So I'm glad
Yeah.
we're working with him. I'm super excited.
I am too. And yeah, he's already been doing if you are with us on Instagram in particular, but Facebook when I remember, he's been doing our reels for the last 3 or 4 months. And so that's really been fun to have him like create little bits, pull out little nuggets for us, and he'll continue to do that as well. I mean, we produce this, but he is absolutely one of our producers at this point because he does have other ideas that you guys will start to see unfold moving forward. But I think the big one is if you listen on Spotify, you can now watch us. Every episode from here on out will be this. It'll be a video. We've been on YouTube since the beginning, but I do like the upgrade of being able to watch us on Spotify if you're on Apple or any of the other platforms, Audible, iHeartRadio. Those are all still audio, but so occasionally, if you want to go in and watch us talk, then you can watch us on Spotify. So that's fun. So yes, you will see we have a new logo, which Liam helped create. So there's new thumbnails. But the one thing we didn't change is we have kept, and again, on Spotify, you're not hearing the theme song anymore because it goes right into the video. But anywhere else you're listening, you still get to hear Charlotte's song Damage, which does feels more appropriate than ever. She
It
wrote that when she
does.
was like, I mean, she wrote it in 2020. So yeah, she probably wrote it when she was 13. And it was about, and actually this will work better with next episode, but it was about like going through this experience of people not being kind and keep going back to the well and hoping something will change. That's not necessarily the theme of this pod, but the music is great. So yes,
Yeah.
our theme song is still from Damage, Charlotte Callahan.
Badass women. Badass women is a theme of this pod, and she certainly is with
She is,
her
in fact, a badass
just
woman.
who she is and the
Yeah.
all-female band she's part of. And
Yeah.
yes, so that's
Shout
why
out to
we
the Death
feature her.
Aids.
Yay.
All right. So, episode 1 of season 3, Buckle Up Buttercup.
I mean, how perfect is our experience of doing this a third time? Could we live the theme of this episode more?
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yeah, that was
Hmm.
definitely, I mean, when you think of Buckle Up Buttercup, what comes to mind for you?
I mean, I do think it's a. I don't know this. I'm curious if it's a Gen X kind of thing. Just like buckle up, like more hard times ahead. We're here for it.
Totally.
Buckle up, like we've said in other recordings that may never come out, is I will throw out these ideas of titles and Lisa will capture them luckily, and then I won't remember later what I meant. But this one I do. Obviously, buckle up is, if you even if you don't agree with anything that we both believe in, I'm not, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
But I don't know anyone on any side of anything could go into this year thinking it's going to be smooth. There's just too much going on in the world,
Yeah.
um, locally, nationally, globally, that it just makes us know that we are in for a bumpy ride. That doesn't mean it's all bad. There's a lot of ups
Right.
and downs. And I do think the stage of life that I'm in, and I think you're in the same, has taught me that the bad and the good come together. And it is a bumpy ride. And it's about really, grounding yourself, buckling up, and
Yeah.
knowing that like all of it is going to bring something positive for you, even if it seems horrible at the time. And you can't see beyond that. Some things are sad, some things suck, some things feel mean and nasty, and you can't make sense of it. But maybe it's where you find out who you're, like, what you're made of and who your true friends are, um, and like what makes your family, glue together during those kind of times. So I think that's what we need. Buckle up.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're right. I mean, buckle up buttercup is kind of a funny phrase, but it's also just this sense of, yeah, we don't know what we're in for. And really, you could say that about any year. It just feels like, with coming back to Trump being in office, we've seen, we saw what happened in the first 4 years. I think it's going to be substantially different. I personally feel like worse moving into these next four. We so often, and we've said this in past episodes, record so far ahead of time, but we are recording this on January 2nd and for the third time. And so consequently, since our last episode, which we recorded mid-December, the Blake Lively shit has come out. Yesterday, there were two essential terror attacks, one in New Orleans, one
Mhm.
in Las Vegas. Um, it's like what a kickoff to New Year's Day, And so
Yeah.
I feel like there is an aspect of hunker down because you are going to need every fiber of your being to be present and able to
Mhm.
meet the moment at the time, and so I think also when we first started talking about this, there was this idea of like, okay, well, we had the election, we had our election bonus election pod. We were on Elijah Selby's businesses activism pod talking about misogyny there. We're going to be talking about it again next episode. And but we've also settled into, okay, this is where we're at. This is what 2025 looks like, or has the potential to look like. How are we going to stay present, joyful? I almost wanted to joke and say demure and mindful, but that is definitely not us. Um,
Very
and because one of the things that has been so important and great in especially in the 11 or the 100 days that VP Harris ran was the joy that came back to our life. And I
yeah,
don't want to lose that over these next 4 years. Those first 4 years, physically, mentally, were not great for either one of us. I
right.
cannot do that again. And I'm not going to allow that Trump regime to do that to me again. So
Mm,
what are like for me it is about being really present with the day. What energy do I have? Where do I want to spend it? Are there going to be times that I
yeah.
want to watch the news? Okay, great. Probably most of the times I'm going to just dip in and dip out and just get a sense of what's going on because I just can't swim in that water like I did in those first 4 years.
Um, well, first of all, just to backtrack a second, like when the other thing that like buckling up, we both have a lot of like personal things happening too with our families, with our kids. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
big transitions, especially for me. Like I have someone graduating from high school, someone graduating from college. So like the whole dynamics at home is shifting. We're
Yeah.
hopefully, getting Griffin all solidly ready to, enter the workforce. And hopefully, getting somewhere with his medication making him too tired and all that. So it isn't just like big things with you and I and our work. It is big things with the people we live with and care about. So there's that. And whether or not you pay attention to the news, like Lisa and I try not to, but I have like, a political economy major and a kid in con team, and they're grappling with these things and sharing these things. Even if you're not, like locally there could be something affecting you. So yeah, how do you stay grounded, like shielded in a storm, right, but like make
Yeah.
your way through and not just hide, right? How do you like venture out and live your life and not let all your joy get stolen? That's a good question. I think some days I'm great at that, and other days I succumb to it. Some days I'm just like, damn, this sucks, whatever
Yeah.
it is. That yesterday, that was hard news to wake up to.
Well,
My
especially
son
because
who
Peter
lives
goes
in,
to, yeah.
yeah,
I
he
mean,
lives in
luckily
New
he's home,
Orleans.
but yeah,
He
our
was saying,
retreat, we looked at New Orleans for our retreat. That was one of the things I thought about. It's like, oh my gosh, no offense to New Orleans. Good
yeah,
God, they've been through
this could happen anywhere, and it does.
exactly. I mean, then it happened in Vegas as well, but it was just like, yeah, yeah.
Peter was saying, because he woke up to the news and lots of texts from friends, because we were in a
Mm,
cabin surrounded by snow. We weren't really checking stuff, so he woke up to it on New Year's Day and said, at any given time. Now, Tulane students don't often go to the touristy places in Bourbon Street. They'll go to like
sure.
Frenchman, which is a lot more local with with live music. But he said any given day, often it's a group of girls, but it could be girls and guys. Like they're going to Bourbon Street to celebrate someone's birthday. Like there's certain.
Mm,
It said if we weren't on break, I'm certain I would have known people down and around there. And our hearts are so broken for all the
yeah.
people that are affected by this, all the lives lost, but then the families of those people who lost lives. And when we lived there, Brendan, I remember a New Year's Eve that I was home. We barely had lived there. I didn't really know anyone, so it was cracking me up that he was like texting me from the ER going, "Don't go outside at midnight." I was like, "And do what?" And it was because in a place like that, and it doesn't just happen in New Orleans. In big cities it can happen, but people will shoot off a gun like a firework, and it literally like made its way over the river and hit somebody in the skull who ended up in his ER. I know this is
Oh
such a
my
morbid thing to
gosh.
say, but like these things can happen in big cities, and that was so heartbreaking. And yeah, how do you feel joyful on a day like yesterday?
Yeah.
How do you hear that and say, oh, great start to a year?
Right.
And I think it really is the preciousness of life. Like it is like, okay,
Hmm.
that I am here. And in this iteration of life, I'm not an ant or a or a sloth, or like
Yeah.
I'm in this human form around other human forms, and how can I bring more joy? So what it did, we had to get on the road in the snow, and went to a coffee shop to grab something to eat. And it just made me really think about, like, there could be times I'd be annoyed by these people in line or irritated that the woman didn't hear what I said, but I just decided to meet every single person I was talking to with like warmth. Thank you.
Mm,
Have a happy new year. Thank you.
yeah.
And my son and I talked about that in what could have been an agitating situation, because we were a little nervous about being on the road, just was an opportunity to be a little slower, a little kinder. I don't know. Does that
Oh
answer your
my,
question?
oh my God. I love that. And it's, it is funny because over the holidays, it is just obviously the time of the year where everybody does try. It makes me think of the movie Scrooge. Like everybody does try to be a little nicer, a little kinder. I love saying happy holidays. In my building, we have security or front door people, like they let people up in our building. And there's two that work. There's several of them, but we see two of them on a regular basis, and we gave them each a gift card for the holidays, and like their face lighting up. It was literally such a small gesture, but you could tell like they were so moved that we would think of them. Like that kind of stuff.
Mm,
Talk about joy. If you can't grab on to something that is joyful in the world on any given day, making your own joy like that, being a little kinder, smiling, saying thank you, pointing out. I mean, I have a session about appreciation and appreciating the people in your life, from the postman or woman, post person, to your hairdresser, to the person bagging your groceries, whatever it might be, just like literally seeing them and thanking them. More often than not, the person you're doing that for is a little bit taken aback because we do not appreciate each other so much. We really do all still live so in our own heads and our own bodies, um,
yeah.
and that is such a great way to manufacture joy because you're bringing joy to that person, but it is so fun to do for yourself. So I love that.
As
Slow down and be and acknowledging others, bringing your own joy into your life. Perfect.
Be gentler with
Gentler.
yourself
Yeah.
and others, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say another one too, and I think I set this to myself, so I'll try to get this reel up this week. But the idea, there was a woman I saw on Instagram talking about how to manage this time in between the election and the inauguration. And one of the things she was talking about, she said things that you and I talk about all the time about being present and limiting news, or limiting, outside noise. But the one that, of course, is huge for us is having community. I'm
Mhm.
seeing that a lot in a lot of different places, whether it's clairvoyants or psychics or astrologers.
Mhm.
There's something about this time, age of Aquarius, whatever it might be, about being in community. And it could
Mhm.
be a big community, it could be the retreats that we have, it could be your family, it could be your friends, but we've talked about
Your
this
neighborhood,
before. Your
yeah.
neighborhood, like making sure that, not in an effort to bubble yourself away from outside thoughts and ideas, but as a way to feel like you have a safe space to land all the time.
Yeah.
Community is so important. We heal faster in community. When there's that support and accountability from friends and family and loved ones and neighbors, like that's huge.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Uh, I was just thinking too, listening to you, is I mean, the community piece is huge, and it's the antidote to patriarchy and
Mhm.
division, and like all the stuff that we're trying to battle against. But and and as we've said so many times, like it steals all of us, not just women. It steals the joy
Yeah.
from all of us, to be divided like that. Community where people realize their interconnectedness and how we rely on it and work together I think does bring a lot of stability, a lot of love, a lot of safety,
Yeah.
definitely belonging. What I was thinking listening to you too, when not letting it steal your joy, is leaning into whatever lights you up. Um, I think your greatest example of not letting your joy be stolen is, you know, realizing that being angry takes away your freedom,
Yeah.
realizing that when you turned off the news and put on music, not only did it create an impressive number of minutes listened to on your Spotify Wrapped, it really helped you release all kinds of negativity and
Yeah.
pounds.
Yeah. And bounce. Yeah.
um, so, so there's that, right?
Yeah.
Leaning like I I always feel embarrassed. I don't know why I'm always, I don't really feel embarrassed, but I always feel like I should be. I love cooking, especially with my kids, and leaning into that when I don't really know how to make sense of something that's sad either in the world or in my life, you know, because we've been through some loss recently. I love leaning into that. Like, there's
Mm.
something really just having music on and making food and then having a meal as a family and acknowledging, you know, all that went into it, even before it got to our kitchen and our table, and
Mm.
just, you know,
Hmm.
like all the people who picked, you know, this produce along the way, or the animal, you know, like just all of it. And
Yeah.
that's a real that lights me up, just the interconnectedness of meals together,
Yeah.
and like all that came together out, you know, that grew out in a field and ended up in our plates and in our bellies. So that for me, obviously live music and listening to music is a big one. And then laughter. I listen to a lot of comedy, and my camera is going boop doop. I don't know what's
Yeah. It's
happening,
fine.
but I listen to a lot of comedy, and that really, like, laughter and music will always be like an infusion. It's like an injection of when I need to like course correct from how I'm doing and how things might be overwhelming me or getting me down. And I don't just mean being sad, it's just literally the stress of being human. If you're at all aware of
Yeah.
anything, it
Yep.
really helps to balance it out with the things that light you up.
And as we've said a million times in the first two seasons, this isn't about bypassing the feelings you're having. Again, when I think about every day, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to acknowledge to myself, what kind of day am I having? And if it's a day where I'm exhausted and I'm tired and I can't, and I just can't with what the world, then I'm not going to, I'm not going to try to joy myself out of that. It's
No.
about let it happen, and you don't want to wallow in it. And so that's when the course correct. That's when, okay, what's my next best step that's going to make me feel joyful, that's going to bring me back. Um, and it's, yeah, any of those things. So it's almost like having a cheat sheet of things that bring you joy, so that when you don't have to think about it. You can just kind of grab, oh, I'm going to go listen to a playlist, or I'm going to go sit by the pool. Sorry, I live in LA.
I know. I'll
Uh-uh.
go take a walk on a snowy trail.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful here right now. We don't have snow outside here, but we were in the mountains, and oh, all those pine trees covered in snow.
Yeah.
That brings me joy. I'm glad we got through it safely though. Um, I was just thinking when you said that, that's just such a great reminder. And it's another way of achieving that, is not trying to cheer someone up or cheer yourself up. Literally talk about it, let yourself talk about it. Or if you're
Yeah.
trying, if your instinct is to cheer someone up, first let them talk about like let them get that out. I
Yeah.
think whether you're writing it or speaking it or just sitting and feeling it, sometimes that is the best way to access joy, is to release all the stuff that's getting in the way. So yeah, don't bypass it. Sit with it. You'll survive it, and it's temporary. And sometimes just removing it from your head or from your, chest is exactly what allows you the lightness you might be seeking. And joy is a big word. It doesn't have to be joy. It might just be levity. It might
Contentment.
just be peace. It might just be neutral. And neutral is
Yeah.
kind of joyful for some
Yeah.
people.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And especially if, again, we're recording this at the beginning of the year. So this is, obviously the time of the year everybody starts to make goals. You and I are not a New Year's resolution person. I haven't been for years and years and years. But you and I both have goals, not only just for the pod, but for our own personal business and for the things we want to be able to accomplish in 2025. And if you are constantly avoiding your feelings, that can keep you from moving forward in that way. Um, what are, I know, again, this is our third time recording, but I'm asking you this because I literally can't remember. So, yay, us. Um, what are some of the things you want to accomplish this year?
Well, to your point, I not just as a person, as a human, and as a coach and as a parent, I'm not like pro what's your New Year's resolution? Like
Right.
what are your goals? What are your actions? I asked my family, like, do you have a word or do you have an
Mm,
intention? Right. And again, if you are a resolutions person and that works for you, I'm not trying to bag on it. Lisa isn't either. I think
no.
what we both believe in is intentionality
Yeah.
um and sometimes a resolution just sets you up to feel like crap.
Yeah.
So an intention is like a beautiful course correction, and it's like something to ground in and something to kind of feel focused on, right? So my intention, and have had this in past years, as you know, and it's a continuing journey for me, is strength.
Mm,
I found out have osteoporosis in my spine. um, I definitely, when I was, nursing a shoulder injury, I wasn't working my muscles as much as I used to. So getting physically strong is a huge important thing for me from on many levels. I think my mental health is great when I'm in shape, but it's
yeah.
way more than that. I'm an adult disabled son who I sometimes have to catch if he has a seizure. But I also know I'll just be around longer, and like if I can focus on that, and I'm disciplined about getting stronger, I show up stronger in every other way, emotionally,
Hmm.
mentally, um, and in other ways too, like financial strength. I want to be, I was saying, I feel like it's stronger to save more, spend less, and just kind of buckle up that way, right? Like just lean out the things I don't need.
Yeah.
Um, be like listen more, say less. Love more, judge less. Those kind of
Mm,
things. Those are ways I want to be stronger.
yeah. I love that.
And that's kind of you know, how I'm intending to walk through this time. And I think that kind of strength, that kind of wisdom, as you and I have noticed, both as parents and friends and professionals who work with people, is that just comes. And I'm grateful for that. I'm
Yeah.
grateful to be in that the crone years of like, we will survive this. And
Yeah.
it's important that we stay vigilant.
Yeah. No question. Yeah. For me, I mean, obviously, I'm feeling a little sense of wanting to switch some things up this year. We were talking before we got started recording, like I started a new workout routine, and I haven't done that. I was so I struggled so much, especially at the beginning of last year with my hip hurting. And so when I was released from my hip replacement, getting back into my old routine felt new and exciting and fun. And then now it's been 6 months again, and I'm like, oh, I'm just bored with all this stuff. So I kind of started a new movement routine because that's how I ground myself every morning. But I'm in that space of like every muscle hurts. I'm like, oh, I guess I hadn't used that muscle in a while. So it's this. There's a little bit of. I have a client who wants to be very like she wants to ride her success wave this year, and this is a year sort of for her of rest in some ways. I mean, she's kicking ass and taking names, but she's just not looking to go bigger this year. This is a year for rest for her. I think for me, it's a little bit of the opposite. There's something about it being this, what I keep calling the second quarter of the 2000s, that makes me want, I feel like I want to mix up some things up. So maybe that's why I was as excited when Liam came to us about these ideas. You and I have a lot of great ideas for the pod and how to have a broader reach and a different kind of reach, different opportunities to be with us. Um, but even in my own personal business, I'm changing it back. I'm going really back to being a transformational life coach and not. I can help you build your business. That's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. But there's this weird sense of even the exercise routine. I bought this routine 7 years ago. So it's this weird sense of both going back to basics and also switching things up. As
Mm,
I'm just like literally realizing that as I'm saying it out loud right
that's
now.
kind of cool.
Sorry about that. So it's a weird, yeah, it's a interesting
And I think
vision.
I think life is cyclical. I think we go back to the things that work with new wisdom and maturity,
True.
and go forward with them. I thought,
Yeah.
so I think that that's a really beautiful example of that. Um, and then as far as like, I think that's a great example of like how we're moving through this in our own bodies and in our own self-care, but also in terms of the buckle up and all the ways this can be overwhelming if
Yeah.
you are aware at all of anything going on in the world. I mean, I think you and I have both said it in different platforms in different ways, but pick the things that you can, and if it's just one thing, and even if it's just mindset, that's enough. But if there's something you can get involved with locally, if there's some way you can make an impact, do
Yeah.
that. I've found a couple things that they don't cover all the issues I care about, but people I know and love and trust and support in many ways do. But there's things I can do,
Yeah.
and that helps me feel engaged and part of something without being overwhelmed. And that's how it works for me. Otherwise, I really could just be dead in my tracks with like, and what about that? And what about that? It's like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna focus on these things. I think that that's also a way to, take care of yourself and be part of something if you want to be counteracting the forces that you feel like are stressing out the planet or you or your community.
Yeah. And then there's also the piece, I think, around celebrating your wins along the way, hopefully with someone, because again, it's one thing to know it, it's another thing to verbalize it. When you share a celebration, it becomes a memory. It's not just a thing that happened. Um, so, it might be a big thing that you've accomplished, or it might be a day of rest, or it might be a day where you got a little creative or what, like, but really, um, taking time every once in a while to acknowledge how far you've come and where you are, you know, again, for me, a lot of my non-resolutionness comes from spending 14 years in the diet industry and watching, people come in at the beginning of the year and not be there by mid-February. And that made me sad for them because when you set yourself up like that, I mean, the statistics show more often than not, people are done with their New Year's resolutions by mid-February. And then you're in a place, whether you realize it or not, where you feel like you've let yourself down or you've quote unquote failed. You haven't. And so being able to celebrate the little wins along the way and not just the ultimate goal you think you're headed towards, that helps keep the motivation, that helps keep the joy in your life if you're acknowledging everything as it comes along that you accomplish.
Well said. I like that.
Anything else you want to say before we do the song?
I would say, no, I think that you said that really well. I would say whatever it is, even if it's less than a minute, if you had something you did daily, just something.
Yeah.
If it's like
Yep.
one specific stretch,
Mm,
one thing you tune into, one phrase or word you want to repeat, some way that you like can put your hand on your heart, take a deep breath, and just acknowledge that you're okay in this
yeah.
moment. Um, will do wonders with the
Mm,
consistency. So yeah, I think that like that's a way to water down what you just said. Basically, is one thing, one way of checking in with yourself. You all have less than a
yeah.
minute every single day. You could do that. See how that just give that a week of committing to that every day and see how it grounds you.
Yeah. And motivates you and lifts you up, you
Yeah.
know. Okay, so in some ways, we've had a hard time finding a song for this episode. I actually looked up, there is a song called Buckle Up Buttercup. I read the lyrics, I was like, these make no sense. And then I listened to the video, I was like, nope, still don't like it. We
Also,
had,
we feel different each time we've recorded
I
this.
mean, it really is so funny. And yeah, because last time we had we fall down on our knees by Glenn Hansard. That was going to be the song, and then I was reading the lyrics at the end of the episode that will not see the light of day. And I was like, no, this doesn't work. And then later that day, I was listening to uh, Liam and I were discussing yacht rock, and we listened to "The Way It Is" by Bruce Hornsby, which was so overplayed back in the day that I was never a big fan. But now it's one of those songs I'm like, this is a really good song. And While it is not a particularly joyful song, I will say reading the lyrics again, I don't know. I mean, it feels very of the moment for what we're heading into. Again, so many things have already changed, like from the election that I'm back to feeling like I don't really know what's going to happen. I thought I felt pretty solid, like, oh, these are the things that are going to happen. It feels in flux again. But anyways, if I may, I will read the lyrics to The Way It Is, Bruce Hornsby. So it says, standing in line, marking time, waiting for the welfare dime because they can't buy a job. The man in the silk suit hurries by as he catches the poor lady's eyes. And just for fun, he says, get a job. That line right there. Like, I mean, that's okay. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change, but you don't believe them. Said, hey, little boy, you can't go where others go because you don't look like they do. Hold on. La, la, la. He said, son, that's just the way it is. But you don't believe them. They passed a law in 64 to give those who ain't got a little more, but it only goes so far because the law don't change another's mind when it sees it at the hiring time. It's the line on the color bar. That's just the way it is. I hope that song doesn't pan out for us in 2025 and beyond, but right now that everything I'm seeing feels that way. Um, so again, not the most joyful of songs, but I don't know if we're heading into the most
It's
joyful of
such a
time. I think
it's
we're
such a
it's
beautiful melodic piano
so
riff too.
gorgeous.
Like it really is such a weird juxtaposition to the lyrics. Like there's something really really groovy about that song, and then the
Yeah,
words are so sobering. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of in particular, there's a lot of states and communities that are actively trying to return to um, laws and ways of living that make them feel safer, that are really, taking away people's rights. So it does feel very similar, very true.
yeah, and
Let's
and
hope.
I think it goes and in some ways it circles back around to have joy in your life. I think it's going to be more important than ever for you to create it. So buckle up for what's coming down the pike, but don't buckle so tight that you can't create your own joy and see what is out there for you to participate in, to make a difference in, just to feel joyful in your own life. Maybe the amazing piano is the joy, and the lyrics are what we're heading into.
Hmm.
Oh,
Or just be aware of and battle against it.
there we go.
I'm not sure what the
Yay.
giggle was for, like nervous giggle.
Yeah, silly wagons. Okay. So thanks everyone for joining us again at the beginning of season 3. We really have some amazing topics coming down the pike, amazing guests. You're not going to want to miss a single episode. If you're on Spotify, we would love for you to comment. We'd also love for you to give us 5 stars. If you are on Apple, you can actually write a review. We do read those, they're very fun. And then we're everywhere. We're on iHeartRadio, we're on Audible, we're on you name it. If you listen to a pod there, we're there. So please, please, please keep joining us every week as we unpack this next year alongside you guys.
And buckle up.
Buckle up. All right, everybody. Thanks for
So long.
listening. Bye.
Bye.